Hello, everyone. I'm Monica Lemura, the Director of Marketing and Communications for USTA Eastern. Welcome to Day 5. It's been an extraordinary conference so far. Thank you so much for joining us today. This session is about marketing best practices, though, through this incredibly trying year. I think this year has really been about building trust, managing relationships, and providing reassurance to our audiences that we really are all in this together. And before I bring on our session facilitator, Natalie Dignall, who is the community coordinator and tennis service representative for Southern and New Jersey, I'm going to introduce first Chris Joyce, who is the Director of Foundation and Marketing for the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. This is quite a mouthful. NYSPHSAA is a nonprofit voluntary educational service organization composed of public, parochial, and private schools dedicated to providing equitable and safe competition for the students of its member schools. High school play is such a critical part of our pathway, and we really value our work with Chris and this organization. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris for some trivia, and then Natalie will provide an introduction on our panel. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Monica. Hello, everyone. Just a little bit more background on us. We have about 786 schools in our membership, pretty much the entire state outside of New York City. We do our girls tennis in the fall and boys tennis in the spring, and we're very excited to be expanding from our individual championships and adding a team tennis championship event this coming year. And USTA has been great to work with and helping with that as well. So I'll just jump right into some trivia questions to help get this thing kicked off. Our first trivia question here. Anybody have any idea how many scholastic tennis teams compete within our NYSPA schools? And that's from varsity, JV, freshman, all the way down to modified across our membership. If you want to submit your answers here in the chat, first person to get it correct, we can ship them off some swag.
And if you could enter your first and last name, and I'm going to type in my email address to the chat as well. The winners can email me their home address for shipping.
Great, thanks, Monica. I see 500 in there, we're going higher. Emily, closer, still even more than that. $650, we're going the wrong direction. We're higher than 1,200, we've got about 786 schools, but we've got varsity, JV, modified, 1,350, closer. We're getting there, still higher than that. Anyone else? 1,570, we've gone a little too high there, somewhere in the middle. Amy Gutman was the closest, just a little bit too high there. $1,470, we'll take that. Yolanda Richardson. Make sure you email Monica. The actual answer is $1,450. We'll take $1,470 as our closest. So next question, somewhat related to that. Does anybody have any idea how many athletes we have competing in our schools? About 1,450 teams. You can try to do some math there and figure out approximately how many student athletes we have competing in our membership. Sarah Thomas, you're correct. I missed you up there. Sasha Thomas, sorry. So Sasha Thomas will be our actual winner for the previous question. To me, we're going higher than that, higher than Edward. Edward's pretty close. Edward is pretty close. You know, we're going to give it to Edward. It's about 21,000. So congratulations to Edward on the second one. Make sure you email Monica with your information. And then our last question here. So this is more of a personal response here. This will be, our NYSPA alum achieved a ranking on the ATP World Tour in both singles and doubles in the late 90s. Also as a hitting partner for a couple of pretty famous tennis players during their career. Anybody has any ideas, submit your answer in the chat. Not James Blake. I have a couple of other clues that I could give here in a couple seconds if we don't get a response that we're looking for. Not Scott Lipsky. He's from Western New York. from the Pittsford area. He's actually also serving as a coach right now at the University of Rochester tennis teams. Haven't seen the correct answer come through yet.
Maybe one more clue.
I don't know if I have more clues. Let me see.
Good guesses.
His ATP ranking was back in the 90s. I'm not seeing it in here. Monica, I'll leave it to you when you want to call it. I'm not sure.
Any final guesses, and then we'll call it. All right, Chris, I think give it away.
All right, Brad Thyroff was our answer. Sorry nobody got it. Maybe it was a little too specific, but he is one of our more prominent NISTA tennis alums. So thank you, Monica, for having me on, and I'll give it back to you to launch the rest of the session. Everyone enjoy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. And I'm actually going to pass it on to Natalie, who will be introducing our panel.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Chris. Welcome, everyone. Friday at last. We'd like to thank you all for supporting us so much this week. It's been great chatting to all of you. And today we have a fabulous panel lined up to talk to you about what they've done to support their communities through this really, really tough time in COVID. We all know how almost a year ago today, life was normal and suddenly it wasn't. And these three providers are going to talk to you about what they did and how they were able to use their marketing tools and their marketing experience to keep the numbers up and to keep their clubs open and to keep players playing. So I'm going to introduce you to all three of them and then hand over to them. They're going to give you a little bit of background on their stories. And after that, we're going to have the chat open and you'll all be able to ask them any questions you have. We'll field all those conversations amongst the three panelists. First of all, we have Khrystsina Tryboi. Khrystsina is Director of Marketing at MatchPoint in New York. She's also the 10 and under coordinator and tournament director there. She serves as the USTA Eastern Early Development Camp coach and is a junior team tennis coordinator as well for the USTA. Welcome, Khrystsina. Then we have Sarah Sharp, who's the general manager of Sport Time in Schenectady and has worked for the company for 9 years. She's had various roles there, including tennis instructor, 10 and under director, membership director, and now she's focused on growing the sport of tennis and providing opportunities for juniors and adults to get involved in the game. Welcome, Sarah. And last but not least, we have Maureen. Maureen is head of community relations and partnerships at Court 16 in Long Island and Brooklyn. She leads all aspects of Court 16's special events and programs, including Sound of Tennis, which is an innovative program designed for blind and visually impaired athletes. Sound of Tennis has garnered support both from us here at the USTA Eastern, as well as HBO Sports and BNP Paribas. These three amazing women have been doing incredible work from a marketing perspective. So excited about sharing their stories today with all of you, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to learn from them. Over to you, Khrystsina. Oh, hold on. Before, Monica's just said to me, wait, I'm gonna... Monica, who heads up, and you've all seen Monica, but really a huge shout out to her and her team because they have done just the most amazing job of what it used to be an in-person event and moving across to this digital event. So Monica, as you know, is a superstar. She has Kristen and Scott behind the scenes working with her. And she's going to share with you what Eastern here is able to do from a marketing perspective, both what they have done and what they can do for you going forward while we still kind of battle with this pandemic. Monica, over to you.
Thank you so much, Nat. I'm just gonna do this. Okay, so I think it's important, and thank you, Natalie, for that really kind introduction for me and my team, to recognize my team. You know, I was in constant awe this past year of them both. Kristen Semple is our digital marketing assistant. All these beautiful graphics and templates that you're seeing throughout the week of this conference are all thanks to her. She's also quite the wizard when it comes to video creation and has helped so much behind the scenes during this conference. So a huge thanks to Kristen. And then we also have Scott Sodi, who was our content and communications manager. The yearbook that you all received and that incredible body of work represents the countless interviews and feature creation, and it's all thanks to him. So he also oversees our e-communications and website, and he's just brilliant. So massive thank you to Scott. So I'm not gonna, you can stay in the slide for 1 second, Kristen, just so I can say, I'm not gonna take a ton of time really going through our marketing strategy from 2020. I think many of you have heard about it through the webinars we held at various touch points through the year. And I do want to spend a lot of this session hearing from our panelists. But for all of us, and Natalie had alluded to it as well, you know, March 2020 represents an immediate pivot. You know, the ink wasn't even dry on our marketing plan when COVID hit back in Q1 of last year. So we had plans to reinvigorate our volunteer program, plans for spring programming, and like everyone on this call, we had to sort of scrap what we were doing, where we were going, and immediately focus on helping. How can we help our providers? How can we help keep players engaged? And all of us at Eastern were focused on those two questions. So our outreach throughout the year was targeted to consumers, and those are players, parents, advocates of the game, and providers, facilities, tennis professionals, and really in 3 distinct phases. And Jenny will talk more about that during the annual meeting. So be sure to tune in tomorrow to hear about that. But we had indoor play, and this is, you know, March and April. We had to get creative to find ways to entertain kids at home. I think professionally and personally, a lot of us were trying to figure that out. How do we keep our family busy? So, you know, games, social contests, among many other tactics. And then we moved outdoor. You know, summer, play is back. We had our, oh, you can go back to the previous slide, Kristen, sorry. We had New Jersey swings back, New York swings back, hashtags. And we asked people to send us pictures of themselves on court. We wanted to see how people were playing and enjoying the game. You'll see that one of our partners actually here had posted on our behalf graphics to underscore the tennis benefits of the sport we all love. Then we could move back inside in the fall. So we had our Acing the Return campaign, provider campaign. We had custom graphics for facilities who were open to show how people were playing safely. And I think it's, you know, it's one thing to sort of tell people how you're opening safely, and it's quite another to show them visually how you're bringing people back. How are you showing your guidelines on court? How are you enforcing the 6 feet between players? So really bringing this to life through graphics was so important to us this year. Okay, next slide. So a silver lining, and there weren't that many this past year, but one of them certainly was for our sport and tennis. People were playing, people were buying rackets, getting out and using those public courts, using the high school courts. And we wanted to engage these players and make sure that they understood all these great reasons to try tennis, to keep playing tennis. And as I alluded to before, we also had a great wealth of health and wellness graphics and videos developed in partnership with Mount Sinai. So we were very lucky to be able to pull on those resources this year. Next slide, please. So I think there's one slide before this, Kristen, that we had some custom graphics for facilities. Actually, if you can go back to that one just for one quick second. This is great, yeah. So we also created an ad campaign to show people, you know, how players are getting out there. Sorry, Kristen, one slide forward to those ads. Just one more again. Sorry, totally my fault. So we spent a lot of time, you know, making sure that we were on the phone with facilities. How are you doing? How's your marketing going? What do you need help with? So we were so happy to be able to spend some time really working as a team and understanding what these challenges were. And we were able to not only create some custom graphics, but also some direct ad campaigns. So these were photos that you see on the screen that facilities actually sent to us directly. We were able to plug them in, put alongside some custom copy to really engage people, to show people again what safety measures had been taken at these facilities. And these were all driven directly to facility sites, not back to Eastern websites. And the results really speak for themselves. 870,000 impressions, 350,000 individuals saw the ads, 20,000 engagements, and 1,200 links directly back to provider websites. So again, not to Eastern. These are going directly to facility websites. And this idea of storytelling, telling consumers how facilities opened up safely, what consumers looked like in their facilities, how they were adapting to this sort of new normal. This visual storytelling was so instrumental in our campaigns throughout the year, and in particular offering this sort of digital portrayal in particular. So with the idea of storytelling in mind, I'm going to pass it over to Khrystsina to talk about her storytelling ability, and boy, is she brilliant in what she was able to do this year. So over to you, Khrystsina.
Thank you, Monica. Yeah, we can go to the slide. So as you can see, the picture on the left shows you kind of our content calendar and what we do on a weekly basis. We post typically two to three times a week, and the ratio that we like to keep for the content is 70% video to 30% photo, or as I put other, because sometimes we engage with nonprofit organizations, and some of them include like USA Gymnastics, and we like to sit on their webinars and actually repost some of their content to engage with them and see how we can kind of integrate content they push out into our audience, since that's also one of the programs that MatchPoint offers. Currently, we use a system that's called Later for all our social media needs. And I've tried a lot of different systems, but I think if you're looking for a great way to keep all of your content together, organized, all of your media, and just something that would give you a peace of mind with publishing as well as analytics, this is a great tool to check out after the conference and see if it's going to work for you. I highly recommend it. I want to talk a little bit about the audience and what me and my team keep in mind when we work on the content calendar on a weekly basis. So if we're talking about the core audience, about 3% of people that you're going to reach, and this could be organic or paid media, only 3% are going to be your buyers, people who are ready to buy, people who are your advocates, who know your brand, they know what you stand for, they're ready to engage, and if there's new offering that comes out, they're ready to jump on, trust you, and basically buy from you. And there's also 15% of people who are open to buying, but they don't necessarily know your brand really well, and they would take a little bit of convincing, what I would say, to come in, maybe for them to come into the club, to take that first lesson, just to kind of familiarize themselves with who you are. And now if we can go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to give you some very specific points of what you can do for yourself or for the company that you work for to develop epic stories. It's my computer frozen. Okay, so I would like for you to put a hat of a subject matter expert in whatever you do. It's very important to speak to your audiences from that standpoint. I think it's the only way they're going to believe you, and it's the only way that you're going to be able to create something very unique and very authentic. So content that people will want to share, engage with, and tell their friends about it. So in front of you, you can see 4 questions that we use to create our stories. First, you need to think about your brand and who you are, what your mission is, and really get into the question of why people should engage with you. Why, how are you different from many other providers or tennis coaches, and what sets you apart? I like to think in a way of associations. So I take kind of a big piece of paper and I write all of the feelings and associations that I want people to think and get when they think of MatchPoint. And we have multiple programs, so we don't just have tennis, we have swimming, rhythmic gymnastics, we have fitness centers. So there's many different offers, and every customer is different, and every customer persona is different. So I make basically like a laundry list of associations that I want people to get when they think about us. And those associations really help me drill down to the exact content and the exact pieces that I want to send out and for people to read. Can we please go to the next slide? So if there's something that I would like for you to take away from my presentation, is this slide. Start with 15 core categories that your brand represents. I can put it this way. Let's say for us, it's tennis, gymnastics, swimming, it's fitness, nutrition. So get with 10. And then start drilling down to subcategories that you can get from each of the main categories. And so let's say for MatchPoint, if I'm thinking in terms of a tennis as a category, my subcategories are going to be 10 and under tournaments, adult leagues, conditioning. I'm going to think about tennis parents and, maybe speak with them about how they should behave before the tournament, or what they should speak with their kids on their ride home, because I know that's like a pretty big issue for every athlete that I speak with. And then you're going to start drilling down to the actual posts. So what you see on the right of the screen, first tournament, you can do, that could be your blog post or a video. I love to do interviews. So my amazing assistant, he's also a videographer. And a lot of times he just goes out and he speaks with parents at any of our clubs, and we get testimonials, and we really try to show a face of our customers and the core of what we do on our social media. One of the examples of one of the engagement examples is also, we like to use user-generated content. So we do a lot of polls and a lot of engagement on Instagram and Facebook stories, and then we like to repost our, what our customers are saying about us. I think it's very important to keep in mind that even though a lot of our content calendar is preset and we push out content, 30% of what we do is engaging with customers on the back end. So if anybody's commenting, liking, or sending us any pictures, we definitely, we try to engage with people, we try to like their content, we try to repost and get that conversation going as much as possible. So for example, if somebody is posting something about the gym, we definitely want to know what group fitness class they like the best. Or if there's something new that came out, we're gonna DM our members and say, hey, this is a new class coming out. I think we're gonna like it because we know you like yoga, so we think we're gonna like meditation. So your customers kind of extend that engagement reach from just the front desk to all your digital channels. And hopefully, you're gonna see much higher following. much higher engagement, and this is actually going to help you with the word of mouth referrals. That's definitely something that we've seen, that social media, digital marketing helps us with those really great in-person referrals. Let's go to the next one. Okay. So I also wanted to speak a little bit about different phases that your customers might be in based on their buyer's journey. So sometimes the content doesn't work, not because it's not great content. It's because you might catch a person at one of the 4 buying journeys and the content just doesn't fit with what they're looking for. So every time you're going back to the drawing board to see what kind of content you want to put out, think back to where you want to catch that person, at what stage of or what phase you think that person is at, and what buyer persona you're actually targeting. It's going to help you to really clearly see and match people that come through your door to the people who read your content. Those audiences, basically, you should be targeting, the same audience, and they should be matching. Because at the end, you want people that engage with you online to come through your doors, to take those lessons, to become customers, to become your advocates. And kind of as an end, I wanted to share something fun. Recently, we started playing around with TikTok, just because a big part of our customer base are kids, and they're all on TikTok. And as MatchPoint, we just thought, this is something fun, and we should really start doing it and see where it's going to take us. So a couple months ago, we actually got our first viral video that now has 1.5 million views, and it keeps crawling every week.
Run.
Okay, great. Sorry, I think. So as you can see, it's this video is very low key, and that's one of the things that now social media is going towards. It's less of really prepared highlight, the perfect content that we used to put out. Now people engage in a lot of ads that I'm seeing is just user-generated content, somebody in their living room, filming a video testimonial and putting it out, and that's like the content that people respond to the best. And now I'm gonna pass it to Sarah, and we're gonna learn all about visual elements in visual tools and branding. And Sarah works for Sport Time Shenik Taddy.
Thank you. Thanks, Khrystsina. Sport Time Schenectady is part of a larger Sport Time company. We really kind of had a safety first approach, sort of with the consumer in mind, from the time of the shutdown and, planning our reopening safely. One of the necessary things we knew we needed was signage, instructing our clientele, in safety and what to expect upon returning to the club. So a lot of branding opportunities, just, with our logo, with our company colors. This is an opportunity for brand recognition. And then if you can go to the next slide. Another branding opportunity was the mask wearing, which is, born out of necessity. We decided to produce the logo on it and have it be something that, the staff and the patrons could all kind of get behind. and be unified with. And, you know, it's a nice advertising opportunity as well, because people are wearing masks, not just at the club, but, you know, everywhere. We even had, there was a mask that appeared on a New York Times White House correspondent at a press briefing this week. So that was kind of interesting to see that pop up randomly. And then, you know, obviously this is a paid investment. But something that's free and organic was use of our social media, our Facebook and our Instagram pages, making sure that our customers, members, guests could return to the club after the closure and know what to expect. So we put together some video tours and photographs, because it was very changed from, you know, when they left in March to when they were able to return in mid-May and over the summer and over the fall. And then if we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Another issue that we sort of faced as a company, and then each site, was how to keep players engaged with the sudden shutdown. You know, I think a lot of people, especially junior players, were at a loss. You know, so much of their identity and day-to-day routine is tied into their training. So, you know, we formulated opportunities to keep them engaged off the court by putting together sort of a library of material. If we could visit the next slide, I can kind of highlight that. One of the things that the company put together with our excellent, you know, web designers and marketing designers was live webinars. So conducted with, you know, some WTA and ATP players and Patrick McEnroe, some, you know, live conversations where members were able to chime in with Q&A. But these also became part of an archive, so people can always refer back to them. And then if you can go to the next screen, this highlights sort of how players were able to stay physically fit. There were a lot of live and recorded opportunities to do fitness training sessions at home, and some live and recorded mental toughness trainings with some excellent sports psychologists. You know, I know that Sport Time's kind of in a unique position, but this is something that, you know, any club can kind of adapt with their community of pros. It's just an opportunity for players to stay engaged with the coaches that they very much miss. And then, you know, this is something too that we have available going forward. And then I would say this is one of our biggest pivots. That's kind of something here to stay beyond COVID, is that we were able to offer live streaming for spectators. So kind of another thing born out of safety and keeping, you know, people out of the building just to reduce traffic. But they have the opportunity for closed circuit live streaming through our Wi-Fi. And that's something that, you know, will be here to stay for the future. So this was, you know, necessity, but now it's going to be just a part of our program and our offering. And then, you know, lastly, just to recap, you know, the approach of sort of safety first and sharing the most relevant information with COVID and safety protocols and procedures, and driving members to our website. That just resulted in an opportunity to upsell some of our services via the website and social media. And you know, happy to answer any questions later on. But now I'd like to hand it over to Maureen of Court 16, and she's going to talk about her involvement in programming that Court 16 developed during the closure and how they kept their players and their consumers engaged. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's such a pleasure to join this panel, and just listening to everybody. There's just so much that we all shared in this experience in terms of challenges that we were faced with, not only keeping our players engaged, but really keeping a safety first focus on everything that we do as we slowly build it towards our reopening. But it was back in mid-March for most of us that we suddenly were forced to close both of our clubs, one in Gowanus, Brooklyn, and one in Long Island City. And so like all of the clubs, all of the programs, this was, an immediate suspension and cancellation across all of our different programs for kids and adults, that required a lot of really, quick thinking that, not only we were dealing with, but schools were dealing with and businesses were dealing with. So it was a very quick and fast learning curve to not only get up to speed on what we could do with technology to keep our members engaged with our coaches and with each other, but to start to think towards the future, like past all of this, and how we would all maintain connectivity with one another. So with that, it was a very quick development of our program, which we called Court 16 at Home, which we used Google Classroom as the platform to build it. But we had very, very specific goals in mind as we were building this and debating different technologies to use. And the first was to make it an optional program for our members. We always take a members first approach, and we're very focused on the specific needs of our families. So it was an optional program. Kids all of a sudden had a lot of technology. They were forced to kind of learn very quickly. And so we wanted to make this something for families that was, optional, that they weren't kind of forced into doing based on like an existing membership plan. So we literally took the time to call all of our members, really walk them through what we were looking to do with the program and why. But at the heart of it was keeping a focus on familiarity with what they were doing in the clubs. Obviously, what we can do at home is not recreating the experience of being at the club, but through our excellent coaches, we were able to adapt existing lesson plans to keep kids active using a small amount of space in their living room or a bedroom, just to stay fit. And, I saw this, throughout the USTA's platforms, other clubs, which is just fantastic, because kids have a lot of resiliency, and if they're given opportunities to recreate a sport that they love in a different setting, I think they're very happy to do that. So we saw great results from the lesson plan adaptations. And so beyond that, though, we really wanted to create a very rich and immersive experience on a weekly basis that would take Court 16 at Home beyond just, a lesson plan of physical activities, and really create something much more immersive that was very much in line with what we've been doing at Court 16 since we opened. And that includes, a focus on like tennis holistically as a sport, and all of the people who are in the sport in all different kinds of fields, whether it's, it's coaches, it's players, but it's also journalists, and it's architects, and it's, all these different players that bring so much life to the sport. And so as we were building the program, we really wanted to focus on how we could get kids excited about the sport, and also the bigger picture of different people that bring exciting stories to the sport. So with that, a lot of the key components, like I mentioned, it's the drills and the conditioning, but we wanted to make it fun for kids. And so we set up it was a 12-week program ultimately, and we set up very clear kind of snapshots of what a week would look like. And so remember that we're also catering to teenagers as well as kids as young as 3 and 4. And so for those families that were involved, they really appreciated the fun and simple things that we provided for the younger kids as well as the older kids. So each week had a different theme. And so we would have all sorts of fun quizzes, whether it's, you know, on international players like best of all time, or whether it's on different tennis venues. I'll show you a few examples in a minute, but we themed the weeks and had different guest speakers for each of those weeks, and really tried to make it fun for all age groups. And along with the guest speakers, we really engaged our coaches a lot in this program. They were critical, not only in helping us to interview a lot of our guest speakers, but also in providing sort of an office hours, one-on-one sessions with the kids so that they would stay connected to their coaches on a weekly basis and could continue to work on certain things, whether it's, you know, the serve or swing path, things to keep them connected to what they were doing with those coaches prior to the closure in mid-March. So yeah, this is just an example of 3 different snapshots that we sent to our membership base prior to the beginning of the week, just to get them excited about what was to come for that week. So you can see it provides a really clear snapshot for kids and parents to kind of see what they want to circle and focus on for the coming week. And so it provides details on what our coaches were going to go through as far as conditioning and drills. One of the things that the older players especially loved was sessions where we had kind of a live analysis of some top matches on the pro circuit, where our head coach Nick would break down and analyze like what some of the more important plays were in some of those matches. So a lot of the older kids really loved focusing on that strategy, and it really showed us like this is something that we weren't doing so much pre-pandemic, but it allowed a whole different perspective on the game for kids and their coaches to talk closely about. And so these snapshots also, if you go back really quickly to the previous slide, yeah, these snapshots also provided like what was upcoming with the key guest speakers and some of the fun games and contests and stuff like that that we did. And I should add that a lot of these things incorporated points that kids could earn for like different contests. So it made it kind of fun and competitive. And although online, something that was a departure from all the things that they were doing online with school. So that kind of competition that we integrated into the program made it really fun for kids in terms of earning points and doing quizzes and stuff like that. Right, so the guest speaker series, this was really a fundamental and really fun component of the program. I worked on this part of it quite a bit, and it was a real highlight for me during this time, just to reconnect or connect with a lot of the brightest minds in tennis. And it's a big part of our summer camp experience, the guest speakers that we have all throughout the 12 weeks of camp that we didn't do in 2020. So a lot of the relationships with some of the key journalists and players that we had were so gracious and so happy to be a part of this. And it was really touching just to see how excited they were to be involved. And that includes many people from USTA Eastern. So I have to give a shout out to Gustavo and Leah Friedman for being a big part of this, which was just fantastic for our players to hear their perspective and their plans for getting through this challenging time and what they were looking forward to in the future. but you know, the categories of speakers we had really, like I mentioned before, was a wide variety. The person on the bottom, he is an architect who designed our club. So to have someone come in and talk about the thinking behind what goes into designing a tennis club was, you know, really fascinating for kids who, you know, appreciate good design, but don't always think about like the planning that goes into designing a tennis club. So in addition to artists and architects, you know, we had several journalists like Ben Rothenberg came on, and people who commentate matches like Nick McCarville and Blair Henley. So it was really fun for both the older kids and the younger kids to connect with people that they've seen in the past or that their parents read their articles. So, you know, it was something that kept spirits up and, you know, really provided a lot of positivity around, you know, what's been certainly challenging with the club closures. You can go to the next slide. Oh, and these are just a couple of examples of email blasts that we sent out promoting the upcoming guest speakers. Oh, and this was just an example of something that we integrated within our Google Classroom platform, where our head coach would really set up a very distinct lesson plan to go over, you know, different strokes. Here he's highlighting all the important elements of the topspin serve. So doing these things on a weekly basis allowed the kids to earn points and really kind of make it a fun competition throughout the program. So, you know, as Sarah mentioned, and I think, you know, we touched upon a few times, is just not only did programs like this, you know, really inspire connection with our members and a sense of community, it really allowed us to assemble like this great library of content that we can, you know, tap into and share with, you know, existing players, future players, and it really allowed us to stay connected with our members in a different way and maintain and nurture relationships with people in our, you know, larger community. And probably just one of the biggest benefits too overall was just that it was a big morale booster for kids who were, you know, losing a lot of experiences and still are at this time in terms of, you know, just their basic PE classes at school, a lot of other programs that, you know, had shut down suddenly in other sports. So getting the feedback from parents and kids how this helped to keep them, you know, engaged and fit, and still seeing their coaches on a regular basis was a huge morale booster for us and inspired us to keep adding to the program and think of ways to, you know, continue something like this long term. So there were some silver linings that we garnered through the whole process, despite an obvious, very difficult time. So happy to have some silver linings here and there. So I think that might be my last slide.
Thank you so much, Maureen, and thank you to Sarah and Khrystsina so much that you have shared with us at this time. And we are recording this session, as you're all aware, because a lot of you might want to go back and look at this and reach out to these various presenters to support you. This obviously comes naturally to a lot of you three, but not necessarily for everyone. So we are aware that for some of you, this type of thing seems daunting, but we're here to support you. Our MAC team can help you. The providers that have been on this presentation are happy to support you too. So the chat is open. If any of you have questions, please put them in there and I'll field them. I did get one question which was exactly around that theme. Like, I'm not very good at this. How do I get started? So if one of you wants to answer that question.
Yeah,
Perhaps Monica. Yeah, Khrystsina, go for it.
So I would say just maybe sit down and think why you've decided to get started in the first place. And then think about what feelings and associations you want people to have when they read content that you're going to produce. And I think that's just by itself is going to be a great start. And maybe do a little bit of research and look at companies and social media brands and accounts that you like to follow, and think what you like about them, and what kind of things you want people to think about your account. So I think that's where I would start.
Good advice. Anybody else want to chip in there?
Yeah, that's great, Khrystsina. I was just going to say, I think as much as possible, and as we all know, given the events of this past year, sometimes planning it can be a lot of work, and sometimes you have to make some changes along the way. But I think as much as you can, try to pulse out, what you want your content calendar to be far in advance, so you can line up interviews, as Maureen had, showed us with her schedule from this year. Really trying to understand, okay, we're going to do this in January through the end of the month, and this is what Q2 is going to look like, and here are the discussions we're going to have, here are the feature stories we're going to try to create. So I think trying to plan out what your content calendar will be, so you can make sure to get all the work done in advance, is a really good planning exercise before you start to execute on the channels.
And leading into that, here's a question. What digital tools would you recommend other business owners use, free or that you've purchased? Photoshop, Canva? That's a question. Does somebody have some suggestions there?
So we use Canva for graphics. Sometimes we use a designer, but Canva is really great. It has amazing templates and basically anything you need. And for Facebook, you can just use Facebook. I've done it for a long time, but now we use Later, and I find it a really good tool. It lets you post automatically to Instagram. That was kind of my must-have when shopping for a new tool. Not all of them did that, but this one does.
Sarah, I saw you wanted to say something.
Yeah, Canva's a great app. Also, Poster My Wall is similar. There's a lot offered on just the free version, or you can upgrade, but it's great because you can use it for social, you can use it for website, emails, JPEG, PDF formats, posters. It's pretty diverse, so I'm a fan.
Yeah, one other tool too. Oh, sorry. I think someone.
No, finish your talk. Another question after that.
Is Animoto, in terms of stringing together videos to show on social. That's a tool that we use a lot and really like.
So a lot to do potentially in terms of tools, but somebody else has said here, do you guys partner with other people in terms of referencing them and helping market them, particularly school partnerships is the question I'm getting.
Yes, so pre-COVID, we had a lot of school partnerships for both our Brooklyn and Long Island City Club, which we hope to get back off the ground soon. But, a lot of those started just very organically, like schools, close to us in the neighborhood, kids who came to the club, who went to those schools, and then it really became like a very strong word of mouth where school programs were kind of born out of many kids from one school coming to the club, where we developed after school programs. And so a lot of it kind of really started that way. It was a combination of word of mouth and proximity. So if there are, schools near you that, because proximity is, key with a lot of the relationships, I would, pursue reaching out to them, and looking at programs that they might be looking to start now, which might not be the traditional after school program in terms of like kids walking over or busing from the school to your facility, but just more of a maybe a smaller program of a few kids that are just potting together. I mean, we've sort of maintained some of our school relationships by having a flexibility in how we've formed them this year versus in the past. So yeah, I think a key with all of those types of partnerships that we've had is just really knowing your members and what they're looking for, because oftentimes it's right in front of us in the sense of there are people who want to come to the club who are all from the same school, and they kind of join together and work with us to kind of create unique classes and situations. So it's very kind of flexible and organic in that way oftentimes, we found.
And here's another question just saying, have you done this all on your own, or have you used any volunteers or other outside support?
I mean, I would answer that question briefly, just sort of also segueing from Maureen's discussion about partnerships, because I think utilizing the partners that we all have to extend our message platform and help us share, what we're doing is so invaluable, especially this year when I know everyone's budgets are really tight. So thinking about how you can utilize the support systems that we all have available to us through our partners, and really, getting the word out and helping to extend, campaign messaging that way is a really great tactic to take.
And don't forget, you do have your network of support through the USTA. You have Neil, you
Absolutely.
have Joe, you have myself. So we're out there to support you. Our MAC team's amazing. Don't feel alone, and don't feel that if you're not as good at marketing as these three, it doesn't mean you can't do it. We can help you, and you can learn. That's one thing we've all learned during COVID is look at us at Zoom. Like, how many of us had even heard of Zoom a year ago? You can get started. You can make this happen. Don't feel daunted by it. We will hold your hand and take you through it and support you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just to add to that, leveraging your support this year to highlight our new safety protocols and using the graphics that you had developed on our own website showing the importance of social distancing and hand sanitizer, all of those things that we, leverage from what you were doing. And then you helped us promote this on Facebook. I mean, it makes a huge difference for parents to see, like, right away, okay, not only is this club doing everything they can to put safety first, they have the support of the USTA, and they're following their guidelines to make this happen. So that made a big difference over the summer.
And storytelling is very powerful. You've heard these three amazing women tell their stories, but we've had other stories. You'll see in the magazine, there are a few stories, one from Woodstock, tennis club. Any great story you have, we'd like to hear it and we'd like to share it. Scott has been doing these amazing interviews that we're putting out there. So feel free to share something very small, something big, because people want to hear these stories and want some good news at this point in time. So share them.
Absolutely.
Monica, I'm going to let you close because I think we've come up to 1 o'clock.
Well, thank you everyone so much again for coming to our session. Thank you, amazing panelists. What a great collaboration this has been. So just really quickly, our award ceremony is tonight at 6:15. Tune in on our Eastern's Facebook page. We have some great surprises in store. Luke Jensen will be emceeing the session, so don't forget to tune in to that. Again, it's at 6:15 on our Facebook page. Also, be sure to check out the networking capabilities within the Open Water platform. You can have discussions there, talk about what you've heard, share ideas. I think that that's it from me. But thanks again, everyone, and thanks for being a part of this very unique, session and very unique conference. And we really appreciate everyone's time.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.